Hey, it's Spence from LaunchFlows.com. I got a great question following my last video asking me to go into some detail about how I actually set up this particular single page sales and checkout setup or layout. And I'm going to show you today how you can use the tools of LaunchFlows, especially with 4.0, to make any design, any kind of custom checkout situation you like, along with the sales funnel pages that go along with it. All right, first thing first, in the video I did use the Kadence theme, but it makes no difference what theme you use. Here, by request, I'm using Astra. I also want to remind you that if you go to LaunchFlows.com, in the documentation, what is LaunchFlows, there's an image here that's going to explain a lot about what I'm going to show you now. The basic premise from the layout standpoint is that LaunchFlows allows you to take the components on a product page of the product, and you can mix them in the content area with other blocks in the purple. If you wanted to make it a checkout page and a sales page, you can mix the product components from the top in the content area, in the content editor area, along with the checkout components from the modified WooCommerce checkout into the middle as well. And the way you get exactly the kind of layout you want often involves setting up the content editor with the pieces from the product and the pieces from the checkout. And that's what I did here. Now let's go back over to our design and start out with the basics. First of all, in the configuration itself of LaunchFlows, we do have a feature which I have disabled. That is the set the LaunchFlows container width. That's a nice way to make sure that if you're using the default checkout and you otherwise aren't trying to do something fancy with the other layout components going full width, you can just set it to whatever you want, and no matter what kind of page, it's going to look nice relative to the container of the underlying theme. So in other words, if the underlying theme has no container, the LaunchFlows checkouts just won't flow to the edge. You can set them in with a percentage or an exact pixel count. Here we don't want to use that. If we go on the back end of how we did set this up, let's start out first of all with the fact that we're in Astra. So in Astra, we go to the product and we're going to scroll down to the Astra settings. Now Kadence has a similar set of settings which are, I think, visually a little easier, but they work the same way. Here we want to go to the content layout. What we want to do is set it to full width stretched. Why? Because, as indicated, we want the background image of the newly designed product to go edge to edge. I'm using my little circle here. I want it to fill the whole width. So I need it to stretch to fill that. That is the overall container that I'm going to work in. Now that I've got the whole width of the container set as far as the edges of the pages, I'm going to move inwards with the details. If we use our inspector here for the blocks and list view, we can see that the top row consists of two sections. It's a two-section Kadence column. You could just as easily, if you want, use the default column block from WordPress. I happen to be using the free Kadence blocks, which I think are a great tool because they give you a little more control. Either way, you want a left and a right section. So here's the left section, here's the right section. Down below, I've got another set of columns. This is where I took advantage and saved some time by using the pattern that's built into LaunchFlows. So for that, I simply went to choose from patterns, and then there is a LaunchFlows category, and I chose this layout here, the checkout block. What that does is it saves you the time and it drops the entire array of shortcodes you need in order to customize the default checkout and not have to worry that that's going to fill the full width. Because remember, we want to put it into the middle where it mixes together, and we want to be able to adjust it precisely. So now that I had done that, I went ahead and I actually chose that column, and here's where I used either the Kadence, but in this case, you'll notice instead of using a section, here I'm using the default WordPress columns. With the default WordPress columns, I have it set to 2, but then when I scroll down using the Editor Plus plugin, again, another free add-on for Gutenberg, I chose a couple things. First of all, I went to sizing, and I used the width option. I set that to 80%, make sure you choose percent, and then I clicked the exclamation point to force important. That made that nothing else will override it. I'm not sure you'll need that, but that's what I did just by instinct because I know I wanted to make sure that that stayed there. Now, when you do that, it'll be kind of like all over to the left, 80% wide. So next we want to use margin. And margin allows us to choose the left and right checkboxes, which will cause them to be set to automatic. And what that does is it sort of balances out and says left and right should be automatically the same margin. Really simple. Finally, in the version 4 release candidate, I wanted to make sure that I adjusted for a little space that seems to have shown up at the top. I'm going to remove that space in the next release, but for now, in order to make sure that the top row didn't have a gap above it, I went ahead and selected the top row, went over to block, and then I went to padding and margin. And here I set the top margin to -20 pixels, just temporarily to remove the space. Now another trick I did to make this look really nice and fill the entire space, the vertical height of the window, I went ahead and used a CSS trick. You don't have to know CSS, you just have to know to use this. I clicked on the row itself. Then what I did is I went to background settings, and nope, that's not where I went. I went to structure settings, sorry. In structure settings, there's an option here called minimum height. Be sure that you choose VH, vertical height, and set that to 100. And what that does is it adjusts so that instead of just filling up the space and maybe leaving a little below, it will fill up the entire space no matter how high somebody's browser is. Now, if you don't want that effect, you can simply remove that and allow it to be essentially either a fixed minimum height or the height of the contents within. I like the way that this effect works because no matter how big their browser, it fills it in and everything scales. Now, on the components here, you'll notice a couple things. First of all, the add to cart component is a LaunchFlows component. That's picking up the default Astra theme colors. The button for that is the Astra theme colors. Now, if I wanted to, I could adjust that, but I'm just going to say the best place to adjust the default theme colors is in the default theme setup, because otherwise you're going to have a weird array. If you wanted to override that, you can feel free to do that, and you can simply either do it by way of selecting this and turning it into a group item and then adjusting colors, or you can use a little snippet of CSS if you're comfortable with that, and so forth. For most people, just change the default colors of the theme, and you do that by going over here to Appearance, Astra Options, Set Colors, and you've got a couple things. You've got link color there, but you've also got buttons here. So here, background color, if we wanted, we could change that to a LaunchFlows type of a color, and so forth. If we publish that, it will pick it up on the front end, and so forth. Now, the watch video is a Kadence. This may actually be, I'm not sure, this may be a Kadence Pro. If it's not a Kadence Pro, it's definitely a Kadence block. There are other modals that are free that will pop up, but I use the Kadence block just to make that happen. And that's an option. It's a nice option, not required, but it's something fun. And then the scroll to checkout, that is actually a default LaunchFlows feature. So here I just used a regular button. And when I set up the button, I, in this particular case, wanted it to go to the area below called checkout. And the way I made sure that that happened was I made sure that I gave the columns area the ID of checkout. So I selected columns, and then I used the I used the block, and I scrolled to the bottom for advanced, where I gave it an anchor of checkout. You don't need the anchor tag for that. You just need to have the word you want to call it. I called it checkout because that makes sense. So essentially, by using anchor tag checkout, that's telling that button scroll down to that anchor tag. Now, if you want the smooth scrolling effect, that button can pick that up automatically from LaunchFlows just by making sure that the button itself has the special class included. So again, not to be all, you don't need to know CSS, just understand an ID starts with a hashtag. That's like a bigger thing. Classes are very descriptive and small, detailed. They start with a period. So in order to make this scroll to the ID, we had to tell it the link was to scroll down to the category of checkout. In order to style this for smooth scrolling, we want to give this button the class of LF smooth scroll. So let's go over here and we check the highlight of this button, and then we're going to scroll down to advanced, and let's make sure I'm actually selected there. And the syntax you want is LF dash scroll dash to dash checkout. Now that's documented in our short codes and our other details on LaunchFlows. I don't know why it's not included as an actual button, so I may just create a button and add it as a block ready to go. But just understand that if you want that smooth scrolling effect and you want to do it on any clickable link, just add LF-scroll-to-checkout. And you don't actually have it needed to go to the checkout. You can designate any area on your entire layout as the anchor to scroll to. So maybe you have a longer page, more details, and so forth. All right, so that's really all there is to it. This particular setup, as you might have noticed, instead of using the product images block from LaunchFlows, I just decided to use the native post featured image, which is a component of Gutenberg blocks. Similarly, I just used the post title. You can use those on any product because they end up being exactly the same, but they give you the convenience of being able to change the color automatically. So when you're using the default theme and LaunchFlows, whatever the default theme colors are, they'll come through. If you instead want to customize it on a per product basis, just use the Gutenberg block for post title or post image or post description or any of those, and it'll do the exact same thing, just giving you a little more control. Okay, we update that, refresh the page, and we've got the result that we want. Now, let's just say for the sake of argument to wrap this up, I wanted to move some things around. The benefit of having the checkout components in this format is I can style them, relocate them, change them, and so forth. So maybe I wanted to move the payment over to this other side. I just select it, and I'll put it below where the billing and shipping would be. Update and refresh my page, and now I can adjust how the layout works over here. And likewise, I can even mix and match. So if you wanted to, I'm not saying you should, but if you wanted to, you could take the review of the order and you could put it up here below the Add to Cart button. And what you would need to do here is obviously change the background. So let's show you how you would do that. You would change this into a group, and then you would go to background. This again uses the Editor Plus capability. And we would change that to something that would give it some substance, maybe pure white. And when we refresh that now, it would be a little bit of a cutout. Let's be sure we double check. And let's make sure I've also set that, by the way. When I do that, make sure I set it to the group. I should have done that. You need to not highlight the block itself. You need to highlight the actual group. So let's change that to the white. And let's clear the cache. Well, let's see what I've done. Let's try this again. Let's put it in fresh. Oh, here it is, sorry. Let's remove this. And let's add it in fresh. LaunchFlows review order. Turn it into a group product. make sure that we got the group highlighted, change the background to a solid white, update that, and let's take a look. We may have to clear the cache. There we go. And I always like to add a little padding in there. I think that works better. So here I'm going to select, I have to squint in there a little bit. I'm going to go percentage, and I go maybe 1 or 2% is often nice. And so now I have a little bit of space. Now you could do different styling here. This may not be the perfect thing to do, but I'm just going to give you an example of how you can actually move things and combine them. Let's add that product add to cart back. So let's go ahead and click here, product add to cart. And in this case, we'll bump it above so it's where it was. And we should have ourselves back to normal. One of the things I like to show people is that I do these videos live. I don't set it up. I think it's important that I sometimes actually struggle too. A lot of people do tutorials and you can see the cuts and all the whatever. This is 100% live. And I find that it also helps me because if I struggle with something, then oftentimes I can more readily identify where someone else might struggle. I notice, for example, like this layout is kind of odd because the coupon would be in a weird spot. What if I wanted to just convert this whole thing over into a single column? Well, let's just do that as the last part of this. And the additional field, which is being hidden, I'm just going to put at the bottom of this stack. It doesn't make a difference because it's not going to be shown. Now what we've got is a situation where we can get rid of this column. So we simply highlight the column here, and then we use Gutenberg to remove the block. And now it becomes a full width of just one single column. And we might adjust the width of this if it doesn't look good. I think that's a little wide. So we might go ahead back here and use, again, the same tools. And let's change the size to adjust that from 80% down to, like, I don't know, maybe 50%. And you can do that, by the way, you saw the tools there, you can do that responsively. So it could be for different responsive layouts. And so hopefully, oh, one last thing. See how the additional information is still shown? LaunchFlows 4 has a new feature. Just click on any block, go to advanced, and type LaunchFlows-hide or LF hide. And what will happen is that it will automatically hide the block without you having to go onto the checkout field editor. So hopefully what I've shown you here is that the LaunchFlows 4.0 makes it possible for anybody, even without design skills, to tweak the existing components in any way you really want. And although you don't need to know CSS, you just have to understand maybe what an ID is versus a class. So you know what we're talking about when we use things like an anchor tag, which is a hashtag, to scroll to an ID of a section, versus a class, which is something we're using to add capabilities. Like this button becomes a scrolling button because the script knows to look for a button with that special class of LF scroll to checkout. Things like that. And just because I love to tweak stuff, I'm going to just show you, see how the padding on that isn't so outstanding? I'm going to click on this button area, and I'm just going to go ahead and adjust the padding on that to give it a percentage of, actually, we'll just do a margin because we want to do a margin above and below and to the side, maybe 5%. That'll give it a little breathing room from the buttons above it and so forth. So hopefully you're inspired here. This is not the only video. In fact, I'm really at the beginning stages because we're going to be putting together, as I showed you, a separate domain with a pattern library that will have mostly free patterns from us. The idea being that it'll make it easier for you to just choose something and use it with LaunchFlows, with, let's say, all these pre-baked things set up. I have found that when you're using Kadence, there do seem to be a few extra ease of use controls than Astra, but I would say that they're comparable. And Astra has some other advantages of being super clean and doesn't force a lot of extra stuff on you. So I like both of them. In fact, we've been using Astra for quite some time. I want to show you if I were to just simply switch back to the Kadence theme here. There's very little that would need to change. Maybe we just need to adjust the container. So let's refresh the page. And we see here that it's essentially the same thing. It picked up almost all the same moves, including the fact that we had changed the color of this. Now that's an interesting thing. Let's refresh and see what Kadence has to do with this. Kadence must give some additional controls over the default. You can see here, the default color of that title is blue in Kadence, whereas in Astra it was white. So all I would do here was just change the color. So you can easily switch between themes because now LaunchFlows 4.0 has all of the meat and potatoes inside of the content area, and the theme controls all the other defaults. You'll notice the scroll to checkout default color for the button, all that stuff. So have fun. Let me know if you have any other questions. Hopefully this video has helped you to understand how easy it can be to customize the components of a sales funnel. Notice, I just needed a product, one product that I already was going to have with WooCommerce. I've got everything I need for a sales funnel and a full checkout. I can daisy chain this together with other products, other checkout pages, other upsell pages, other downsell pages, and none of them require me to lock it into a custom post type. I simply use whichever post type I have, use the existing Gutenberg components, and I can copy and paste between all of them as easily as that. I look forward to seeing you in the next video.